Welcome to the lab, newbie. If you're watching this video, let me be the first to say congratulations! You've recently been approved by the FDA to try out a new drug on human subjects, and you're getting ready for trials. You have just been hired in an extremely prestigious hospital with a long history of curing its patients. But they haven't always been so successful. No, the story of the highly ethical practice of this hospital comes from a long history of people doing some questionable things. This hospital is the story of a world's trials, errors, and sweat. But mostly sweat. Most people believe that the issue of ethical experimentation began with the Nuremberg trials. You know, the time a bunch of Nazis were arrested for performing a series of grueling tests on their prisoners? But these people are wrong. They are but peasants in our scientific world. These issues first arose in Prussia in the late 19th century, when a scientist by the name of Albert Nasser took cells from people with syphilis and injected them into the arms of several prostitutes to see if he could create a vaccine. It didn't work, and those prostitutes actually ended up getting syphilis. Nasser claimed that they got that from their line of work, but when you've injected the virus into their system, well, that argument doesn't really stick. Laws were put into place after this case, but it really was Nuremberg that got the ball rolling on this whole concept. Especially since the Nazis' main argument in their defense was that their laws on human experimentation were very similar to that of the Allied nations, and nobody likes being compared to a Nazi. Later on in 1964, the Declaration of Helsinki updated the rules set by the Nuremberg trials, making it more applicable to modern technology.
1964? Haven't the rules changed by now?
Silly newbies.
I don't understand.
Sounds like a lot of
Hoopla! Hoopla!
Again.
Hoopla!
Sounds like a lot of
Hoopla!
That's not to say there haven't been mistakes along the way. In fact, HeLa cells, which have led us to some of the most important genetic discoveries in the last century, were taken without consent by Dr. George Gay. Despite its benefits, this led to a series of complications, including her son ending up in jail. People thinking HeLa cells were going to take over the world and the atomic bomb.
Does this mean I can test my drugs now?
No! You can't test your drugs without understanding the phrase poop.
Who?
Once you understand poop, you'll understand your place in this hospital. But what does poop mean? It's actually a highly tested and important medical acronym. Watch closely. People, osmos, our pills.
Ah! Who?
Looks like our budding scientist understands poop. I bet you think you're ready to put your drug on trial. Haha, not so fast, Bill Nye. We haven't even talked about FDA regulations. The science guy, who do you think you are? Every scientist with a new drug to put on trial must comply with the Food and Drug Administration's guidelines. All right, Darwin Jr., are you ready to prepare for your trial? Before a drug can get to the shelves of your local pharmacy, it has to go through 5 phases of FDA approval. Phase 0 involves an exploratory study with very little human exposure to the drug. Phase 1 involves healthy volunteers and figures out some of those nasty little side effects. Phase 2 gathers the beginning data on effectiveness, comparing the drug to similar treatments and seeing its effects on healthy and unhealthy people. Phase 3 continues to gather information about safety, as well as tests out dosage levels and its effects when combined with other drugs. Finally, Phase 4 continues to observe the drug after it has been placed on the shelves. Now that's thorough! Let's see how a less ethical scientist handles their trials.
Do it! Come on! Tell me! Do it!
No! Remember, no one wants to be that guy. Now that your early phases have been approved, I bet you think you're ready to get some human subjects.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Slow down there, Sparky! I remember another scientist who thought he was ready to cure cancer. His name was Chester Southam. He took the previously mentioned HeLa cells and injected them into prisoners to see if they would cause cancer. Though they didn't cause cancer, this is still very bad, and Southam later lost his credit as a scientist because of it. So remember, no one wants to be a George Gay, but no one wants to be a Chester Southam either. The IRB, or International Review Board, is a committee designed to approve, review, and monitor all biomedical and behavioral research involving humans. So even those Sigmund Freuds out there can't avoid them.
But isn't that the FDA's job?
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration actually works under the IRB and gave them permission long ago to enforce ethical conduct within their department and beyond. After the Tuskegee syphilis study, where African American men were told they were being treated for syphilis when they actually weren't, people got really angry. And that's understandable, because syphilis leaves icky brown spots all over your body and nobody wants that. Anyways, the National Research Act and the IRB as a result was founded so studies like that do not happen again.
Isn't that a lot of work for just one committee?
Good question! In fact, that's one of the main problems people have with the IRB. They think this is too much power to give to one group, and that this has led to a conflict of interest within the committee. They also think this has led to them looking over some important details, or not understanding the true purpose of some of the proposed clinical trials they reject, unquotey marks.
That seems like a lot of issues.
Nobody's perfect, okay?
Oh, you mean I gotta work it again and again till I get it right?
No! First rule of being a scientist. No Hannah Montana references. Rule number 1. Consent. Make sure the patients know what is happening, the risks, benefits, and that you have their consent before you begin. This can be an easy rule to break, but you have to do it. Remember George Gay and Chester Southam? You don't want to be them. Rule number 2. Make sure your experiment contributes to the good of society. Don't waste our time and money trying to make the next Play-Doh. Rule number 3. Make sure this experiment has been successfully done on animals before doing it to humans. Suck it up, you're a scientist now! Rule number 4, avoid physical and mental harm to your patients. Leave the blades at home, you're a scientist, not Jason Voorhees! That was a Star Trek reference. Rule number 6, make sure the benefit outweighs the risks of an experiment. Don't put a patient at risk for getting a deadly virus just to figure out how it spreads. Rule number 7. Make sure you have an adequate facility to conduct your experiment. Nobody wants to participate in an experiment while locked in a janitor's closet. Rule number 8. Make sure you're qualified to conduct an experiment. You need to be a real doctor. Online degrees do not count. Rule number 9. The patient can end the experiment at any time. Always remember they come first. Which leads to my last point. Be prepared to end the experiment if necessary. If you know it's not going to end well, stop the experiment. So, I bet you're ready to conduct some experiments, save some people, and find out what the cure for cancer is, right? The cure for cancer is...